this lecture, we will discuss one of the most hidden forms of waste, the waste of overprocessing. By the end of this lecture, you will know why the phrase, "we've always done it this way," only adds to waste in organizations, what some of the more common examples of overprocessing are, and finally, some common ideas or solutions to help you fight this form of waste. Let's get started. The simplest way to define the waste of overprocessing is doing more to a product, process, or service than what the customer, specification, or transformative process requires the first time through. Overprocessing is often referred to as inappropriate processing because it includes steps that are not needed, extra handling, duplication of activities, and frankly, most processes where we find this type of waste are just not statistically capable of producing the desired results. You have to be careful with this form of waste because many times it appears to add value, but in reality, it only adds complexity and steps. We often find this form of waste in a non-manufacturing environment where a poorly designed process, lack of standards, and the famous "we've always done it this way" attitude resides. As a side note, this type of attitude or culture is often not a form of insubordination, but rather a simple lack of understanding of specifications or the absence of standards and procedures. There are many examples of overprocessing in your handouts. Let's look at one example of manufacturing overprocessing and one of overprocessing in an office. In this example, we see the hands of a diligent engineer going through and checking or cinching every bolt on this tool a second time. While he may in fact have no worries about what is tight and what is not, this is in fact overprocessing. Another form of overprocessing can be seen in offices every day. Let's say you are preparing a document for another worker. Maybe it's a purchase order, shop order, an email, or a memo. After 1 hour of painstaking preparation, you begin checking your forms for any mistakes, missing information, or inaccuracies. After another hour of tiring review, it's finally complete. You then stand up and deliver your form to your manager's inbox and go back to your desk. A few days later, your manager brings the form back to you and says, "I've checked your work and it looks great. Thanks for all your hard work. Can you read over this one more time and then send it off to my boss, please?" Excited about the approval, you begin reviewing the paper. Next, you start transferring the document into a standard template. Once you've completed this transfer of information, you check it one more time and send the forms off. This is a rather extreme example that showed us multiple checkpoints, repeated steps, and transfer of data all at once. As you can tell, from this example, overprocessing occurs in offices and manufacturing environments. In fact, it occurs just about everywhere. Let's now turn our attention to some of the causes of overprocessing. Oftentimes, overprocessing occurs because we don't understand the customer requirements. As such, we do more or less than what the customer needs in an effort to fulfill the requirement. Secondly, improper use of tools can cause overprocessing. Whether you don't have the correct tool or you're using a tool incorrectly, this can lead to overprocessing. One of the last reasons for overprocessing is when there is no standard method of performing operations. When standard work is not in place, guessing occurs, and this oftentimes leads to workarounds and processing that is rather excessive. So, how do we begin to eliminate or remove this type of waste? The correction of inappropriate processing is very closely linked with the behaviors and culture of an organization. Because of this, overprocessing can in fact be difficult to completely eliminate, as it will require behavioral changes which sometimes take time to shift. As you seek to remove overprocessing, some of your solutions should be focused around the training and development of people. One of the first things that you can do is train everyone in your organization to understand basic Lean and Six Sigma concepts. If everyone knows what waste is and everyone is looking to identify it, you have a much better chance of removing the 8 types of waste. Another very powerful behavior to drive is the willingness to ask why. Why is this step necessary? Why do we do it this way? And why can't we do it like this? For instance, employees who know how to effectively conduct a root cause analysis and use the 5 whys are able to ask why things are happening, why a process may be necessary, and what they can do to change the results. Be aware that transparency and asking questions can only be sustained with a culture that accepts it. Another important mindset that can really contribute to proper processing and development of appropriate procedures is to extend thinking beyond the traditional economy of scale and faster is better thinking. In fact, the great Taiichi Ono once hinted at this concept by saying the slower but consistent tortoise causes less waste and is much more desirable than the speedy hare that races ahead and then stops occasionally to doze. He then went on to say the Toyota production system can be realized only when all the workers become tortoises. In other words, repeating a step 10 times at warp speed will never be as effective as it would be to perform the step once correctly. As with any activity, making the process visual with a value stream map, recorded video, or process map is essential to completely understanding the entire process. After visualizing the activity, you can then look for duplication of activities or repeating tasks, which can be removed or kept to a minimum. Remember, your visuals, especially when using maps, can be as detailed as you want to create them. So, if someone is screwing bolts in, you can map every movement of their fingers if you need to. You've now learned and seen some common examples of the waste of overprocessing, some general solutions to this form of waste, and you have a much better understanding of the effects of overprocessing. Keep in mind that one of the best solutions to overprocessing is also the simplest, and that is when you see it, simply stop it. Though this tip is not a miraculous innovation of engineering, it is one that will be cost effective and remove overprocessing for everyone. Well, that wraps up our detailed look at the waste of overprocessing. We'll see you in the next lecture.